We're back at it again with another Battlefront update. Since the release of the very good December update last month, things have been fairly quiet on the news front, which is natural given the fact that DICE also went on vacation. Of course, with the new year kicked off and everyone now having returned back to work, we've got quite some interesting teases to cover for upcoming content straight from DICE. As well, even some cool Datamine leaks to look into from the previous game update. As always, we'll be covering all of this and more in today's video. And before we get into any of that, but a quick reminder, as if you do like these type of videos, then do remember to give it a like to show your support for not only this update series, but also the content within it. With that out of the way, let's get into it. So, to start things off, as I had mentioned, there really wasn't any notable news to go over since December, as DICE went on vacation shortly after releasing their last game update. Of course, the developers at DICE have since returned back with the exception of community manager Ben Walk, who's still expected to come back to work starting next week. It's only then when I believe we'll be getting a community transmission for the January update. Granted, we already know the general broad strokes of the content that we'll be getting in the January update, such as, for example, Capital Supremacy for the Sequel Trilogy and the new BB unit heroes, but we still don't have the specifics behind this new content, and the community transmission is when we should be getting all of that. On the other hand, there's also a chance DICE could still surprise us with something new in there as well, and if they do, then it will most likely be something small and minor, as they've already shown their cards last month for all the big major stuff coming in January. But yeah, for anyone curious for updates regarding a new community transmission this month, and I know there are plenty of people who have asked, then this should be good news for you. Just one more week of waiting and we're gonna be getting it. Now, before we jump into new material, I do want to cover some of the stuff that has been making the rounds lately, which I think is very interesting, especially when it relates to new content. First is the comment made by Ben Walk just before going on his vacation, as he was asked if DICE would add Chewbacca as a hero for the Sequel Trilogy, mainly because his look remains exactly the same from the original trilogy. Ben responded to this by saying that DICE are currently looking into adding him as a Sequel Trilogy hero too, which is actually pretty big news. And I say that because if the light side get a new hero for the sequels, then so will the dark side in order to balance out the hero numbers. Personally, I agree, and I think Chewie is an excellent choice for this, as he's pretty much part of the main cast in the Sequel Trilogy, so yeah, he fit in there like a glove. Of course, at the same time, if DICE are porting over an original trilogy hero to the sequels for the light side, then I imagine they'll do the same for the dark side too, as I can't really see them making a new hero from scratch for the dark if the light didn't get one. Now, as for what that new ported dark side hero could be, well, that's where we transition to the second question Ben got back in December, as when he was asked if there was any chance DICE would ever add the older version age skins of Luke, Leia, Han, and Lando into the game, which by itself is a fair question given that DICE are focusing right now on the Sequel Trilogy. Ben responded to this by saying, "No plans for old versions right now, have others we'd like to focus on first. We know the dark side is due for a few, etc." So basically, don't be expecting any old version skins for the light side heroes because instead, DICE have other skins they'd like to focus on first, for example on the dark side. Which hey, we all know how badly the dark side needs new appearances, but personally, and keep in mind, this is simply my theory, but since the question was basically asking about light side heroes getting their sequel era appearances, and seeing as Ben said that DICE will instead be focusing on the dark side, then I believe he's referring to Palpatine here. Because think about it for a second, out of all the dark side heroes in the game next to Kylo and Phasma, Palpatine is the only one who works in that era and still needs a Sequel Trilogy skin. Everyone who's seen The Rise of Skywalker knows that he's got a new scarlet red outfit in the movie, and it would fit nicely in his in-game character, considering he still looks and fights the same, so DICE wouldn't really need to make any major changes to apply that new skin. Also, let's not forget if DICE are supposedly going to be porting over Chewie to the sequel era for the light side, then I think it's without question that Palpatine will eventually be the dark side hero they'll port over to the sequels from the original trilogy too. Again, he fights exactly the same as he does in the original trilogy, and he's the main boss in The Rise of Skywalker, so why wouldn't they port him over? The only reason they haven't done this yet is because Lucasfilm wanted to keep Palpatine's appearance in The Rise of Skywalker a secret, which is why we never saw him in any promotional material before the movie's release. And yes, Battlefront 2 DLC is considered promotional material for the movie. And because DICE didn't get to see the movie early, then they obviously weren't privy to how he looked like either. But now that it's the new year, majority of fans have seen the movie, then it would make a lot of sense for Palpatine to be ported over with Chewie to the sequel era maps. And of course, get his awesome Rise of Skywalker appearance to boot. Moving on, but we've also got some fresh new Datamine leaks from the recent December game update, which features a bunch of unused audio files for the reinforcements, both new and old. This discovery was uncovered by none other than Fake Mophead, who's a known hacker in the community. And by that I mean the good type of hacking, such as hacking through the game files and finding secrets left there by DICE. In their search for new stuff through the game files, they found a bunch of unused audio files for the new Sith Trooper reinforcement, along at the same time a ton of audio for the previous reinforcements too. Take a listen for yourselves.
Patriot Protocol engaged.
Affirmative.
For the Sith! Deploy the Sith fleet!
Unit malfunction.
Ceasefire. Ceasefire.
Ceasefire! Now!
Severe damage to this unit.
Damage to all functions.
Taking damage!
Orbital strike detected.
Abandon position. Orbital strike.
Orbital strike!
Exceeding safe temperature.
Weapon overheating.
Overheated!
Well done.
Good work, combat unit.
Now, this is not a major find by any means, but it is an interesting one nonetheless. Which begs the question, why does DICE record all of this audio if they don't plan or want to use it in the game? It's already bad enough that we can't emote with the reinforcements, and they're also pretty quiet in-game in most cases. So now knowing that DICE definitely have audio recorded for them to be more lively in the game, then is there really any good reason on why DICE is ignoring this stuff? If there is, then I'm sure we'd all like to know. But the Datamine stuff doesn't stop there, as another known hacker, Uninspired Zebra, was also able to uncover something very cool in the game files. And get this, offline heroes versus villains. And not just any offline heroes versus villains, mind you, but a match being played on the unused crate map that DICE for some reason never ended up releasing for Heroes v Villains. From what Zebra has disclosed about this, he took the unused crate map and stuck all the offline hero AI that DICE made onto it, and the result is simply amazing. This alone just goes to show that Heroes vs Villains is for sure something very possible to do offline. I mean, sure, it's not going to play out exactly as an online game with actual humans controlling the heroes, but hey, if you're limited from playing online multiplayer, then this would be a great option to give to offline players. It's just a bit of a shame that people need to hack the game in order to uncover these secrets that DICE seemingly are keeping away from us. But who knows, maybe offline Heroes vs Villains will be something DICE are planning on giving us sometime in the near future. Especially now that they've realized that we know it's in fact possible. So in the case they don't end up enabling this in the game later on, then, well, let's just say they're really gonna have to give us a darn good excuse on why. Next, we'll jump into the new hints and teases we've got straight from DICE regarding future content, more specifically the original trilogy. Because while DICE are focusing on the sequel trilogy right now, their next area of focus is without a doubt the original trilogy era. This is already made pretty obvious, I'd say, in the co-op menu in the game, where the layout is done in a way to make just enough space available for when the original trilogy co-op missions are put into Battlefront 2. That was the biggest hint in the game, but of course, things don't end there, as Manuel Lanes, the design director of Battlefront 2's live service, has once again hit Twitter with a set of brand new teases for original trilogy content, most likely making a comeback in February. The first hint we got came as a simple music tease, where Manuel randomly tweeted just the iconic Imperial March with no text to accompany it. Pretty much a small tease to indicate that content related to the original trilogy is approaching next. Now, this alone got many people excited, but the next one really took the cake, as Manuel then proceeded to tweet an image of Luke, Leia, Han, and Chewie with the text, "Looks like they're having fun." And it goes without saying that this was a big tease, referring to the fact that we will be seeing the original trilogy come to co-op mode soon. Co-op is played by 4 players, and there are 4 original trilogy heroes in this picture. And yeah, to anyone asking if we're gonna be getting the original trilogy in co-op, then capital supremacy for the original trilogy will as well be coming to the game too. Also, to any new players to the game who are unfamiliar with Manuel, then this isn't his first time teasing stuff about the original trilogy, nor even dropping us hints for new content either, like for example the second Ewok hunt map we got last year, which we first found out about from him. Now, as for when we'll be getting all of this, then the release date is still unknown. February is looking to be the most likely month for the original trilogy content to drop, but nothing is guaranteed yet. Manuel also happened to like a comment that asked if we would be getting the original trilogy content coming in February. And while it does seem very likely to happen, I personally wouldn't take this as 100% confirmation. Whatever the case, we'll for sure be finding out next month, and I think the chances are pretty good for this to happen, as I personally can't see DICE going back now to Clone Wars content until they add the original trilogy to both co-op and capital supremacy first. But that'll do it for this Battlefront update. And as always, if you enjoyed this video, please like, share, and subscribe to the channel to not only support it, but keep up with Star Wars news, gaming, and canon lore released every week. And consider following me on Twitter and Facebook to never miss out on the latest Star Wars content. Thanks for watching, and may the Force be with you.